Hello, welcome to the podcast. This is Bristol Real. I'm Val.
And I'm Tom. This week the two of us spoke to Zara Eve, who's a chemistry student at the University of Bristol. We talked about her opinions on a huge variety of topics, including the current state of British politics, feminism, and more personal issues of her own goals and motivations. Just as a side note, this is probably my favourite episode so far, and Zara gave some really brilliant insight into loads of things, really, so I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you really feel like it, you can always leave us a review on iTunes, as that helps us out a lot. But yeah, hope you enjoy the episode, and thanks for listening.
The weird thing about Stokes Croft is, like, you must have heard growing up, like, you know, don't go out at night because that's when the weirdos come out, right? Well, it's the opposite.
That's the place.
That's the opposite way around. Like, Stokes Croft,
Yeah.
the weirdos are there in the day and the normal
Yeah.
people are there at night. Like, completely counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's so interesting just to walk around and see the people there. It's brilliant.
Yeah, especially at 10 o'clock in the morning, like, when the alcoholics are out and about
Yeah.
with their, what is it, super brew, or I don't know. What it's
Special
called.
brew.
Special brew.
That's the one.
Super brew.
So should we talk about, start off by the elections then?
Okay.
What you think about the Conservatives and what can we do about it?
Can we sum it up in a couple of sentences?
Thing is, I'm not a person that can offer political solutions because I just don't know. Like, I can't really, like, tell you I think we should do this. I can tell you what I think doesn't work, and I can tell you what I think, like, would be better in an ideal world. But, like, unfortunately, I haven't. Yeah, I don't know.
What doesn't work then?
Yeah.
What doesn't work?
That's the easy bit.
Well, obviously the current system and the way things have been, I don't know, like, for as long as I can remember. I mean, people are completely disengaged from the political system because they feel like whoever you vote for, they're not really going to, the views of the people are not really actually going to be reflected in the policies. And I think, the best example I can think of that was the Iraq war, and the fact that so many people didn't want us to go to war, and, it still happened. And, obviously Labour are still being punished for that. Nobody trusts Labour. And really, those three faces, Ed Miliband, Nick Clegg and David Cameron, that's the best the UK could offer for our leader for the next, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, that's the best we had to offer in a country of, 70 million people. Like,
There's certainly not a lot of variety there, is there?
Well, no, like, none of them were actual, what I would call a leader, none of them were people you can really believe in, or, I don't know.
It's just careers for them. It's not about, they don't go in. That's the thing I was talking about my flatmate the other day. If politicians had to live on the actual minimum wage, then that would actually change.
You mean they got paid the minimum wage for doing their job?
The very minimum wage, like the bottom of the minimum. Not only would the minimum wage rise, but they would actually kind of...
It would rise.
Yeah, hopefully the other kind of... The people who actually get into politics would be the people who aren't interested in the money and rather just want to actually do some good change. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I was having a conversation with someone about this a few days ago, and apparently this is an idea from Plato's Republic, but I haven't read it, so I can't verify that, but that's what
Just pretend you have.
Okay, I've read it, it is on my bookshelf. But no, if you're going to be a leader, the incentive to be a leader should not be financial. It shouldn't be about status. You should be going into public office because you believe in a vision, you believe in bringing about some kind of change and working for the people. They do say that they're paid a lot of money so that they're not susceptible to corruption, right? If they're being paid enough, then they won't be, but it's obviously not true, is it? Like, the motivation is all wrong. I don't think being a politician should be a glamorous job or a job people aspire to have. It's a responsibility. It should be seen as a grave responsibility that you take on board and you appreciate, for what it actually entails. Not, right, I'm a politician now and I have my suit and I have my expensive car and I have my expense account and, like, I better just hold on to this, for dear life as long as I can, because when I lose that status in the future, I'll feel, like, not accomplished anymore. But that's the danger of power, isn't it? Once you get power, you're so afraid of losing it that you hold on to it, you know, whatever it takes. And that's, you know, that's the danger of it. That's why it corrupts people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but then you kind of want somebody who doesn't want to rule.
Yeah.
But then how do you get them to do that?
Yeah. Well, my opinion on it is you saying about you want leaders. I almost don't like the idea of voting for the people themselves. I think, have you heard of Vote for Policies, that website? Yeah. It's a really good one. Like, the idea of voting for whoever has the nicest hair, or it's as ridiculous.
It's genuinely what
who
happens,
can speak
though.
the loudest in a debate.
Yeah.
Or who's got the best script writers.
Yeah.
I think they, like I said, it shouldn't be glamorous at all. They're essentially serving the people's interests, and there shouldn't be any control aspect at all.
Yeah.
I think there's too much of the control.
You know, in my life, I've met so many amazing people that think in such an awesome way, but they don't express themselves very well because they're really introverted. Naturally, that's their personality. And a person like that would not survive in the political domain. But they arguably, people are carrying around such good ideas and maybe not knowing how to express them. But yeah, because it's all kind of presentation, and that's what wins people over and gets votes. That's why, I don't know. That's a big problem.
That's one of the things why people didn't like Natalie Bennett, because she was very kind of introverted and wouldn't shout over David Cameron or Miliband. She'd kind of stay behind and stay in the corner and stay quiet.
Yeah, but she could well have been the best tactically in running a country and managing the whole system. But you just don't know because she didn't speak loud enough.
Yeah, it's a shame.
I don't understand why though she was leading the party, because they know how the media works, and it's obvious that she's not what the country would want. But I don't know why they picked her as leader, to be honest.
A test to see whether people would think in a different way. Clearly not.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Russell Brand... Did you follow Russell Brand before the election? Well, he was...
No.
He was...
But apparently he retracted everything he said straight afterwards. Like, I'm just a comedian. Is that right?
Well, he like for about the past year since he started the Trues, his YouTube channel, he was saying you shouldn't vote. The whole system is wrong, and to an extent, what he was saying made sense. But the part where he said don't vote was the stuff that caused problem. Then a few days before the actual election date, he goes, vote Labour, because Labour is marginally better than Conservative, and we have 1 million subscribers, so we might actually be able to do something to the country. And then straight after the election results came out, and he says it was my fault for thinking that we could actually do something. The old media actually still has way more power than the new media. Like with the Sun, rather than concentrating on the policies, like which Russell Brand actually did to his, that's what he talked about, rather than the people. On the Sun, their front page picture was Miliband with the bacon sandwich thing, and that's what kind of actually affects the elections, not what goes on YouTube. And
Man of the people.
Yeah, can't eat a bacon sandwich. How can you run a country?
I don't know, I think a large part of the problem is a lot of people are swayed by, image and presentation and not substance. And people are so busy in their everyday life with the things they need to get done and the things they think are more important and more pressing that not a lot of attention is really given to, researching policy maybe, or finding out these things. They do rely on the media to provide them with the information. There's so much trust in the old media because it's old, it's established. people feel that just because it's existed for so long, it's worthy of trust. And there are people out there that don't realize that there are agendas behind what's presented to them on news. I've spoken with those people. They exist as much as any of us might find it hard to believe. They do exist, and that's one of the scary things. So, you mentioned about protests, right? And is protesting the answer? And I'm going to paraphrase this because I don't remember it word for word, but I'm pretty sure it was Noam Chomsky said something like, in countries where protests can actually enact political change, it's banned, and in countries where it can't, it's allowed. Yeah. And I mean, like, you don't, like I've already mentioned it, but you only have to look at what happened with the war in Iraq to see that you can have millions of people protesting something and the government takes zero notice of it. So
just a waste of time though.
It's difficult to say, really. I don't think that you should sit around doing nothing. You should express discontent. Like, that's absolutely necessary. Just for your personal integrity, like, you should do that. Mm-hmm. But in terms of whether it achieves things, like, I don't know.
We've mentioned old media and new media a couple of times. It's like, with the advent of the internet, there is a lot of people are saying that that could actually quite, like, change the idea of activism and change the effect that you can have. So far,
that seems to work, doesn't it? It's a really effective way of putting pressure and getting a lot of people behind a cause, like, really quickly, because you can spread information so fast.
Yeah, you'd hope. I think Darren actually mentioned this when we interviewed Darren Hall, the Green dude. He said he'd love to see a kind of a parallel political system where you have voting, fair enough, in the main elections where you decide the people who run your country, but you have things like 38 Degrees, Change.org, people who are campaigning for things, and politicians actually listen, because it's just as valid. Just because they do it on the computer or do it on a piece of paper, which is killing the trees, it shouldn't be any less valid, their opinion that they're putting down.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, it's just so easy to click a button. Most of the time, people don't really mean it. It's just with all that Facebook stuff with the elections.
I think would they not mean it? I don't know. I think it's better.
I don't know. Like,
I'm not sure you can corrupt.
I guess
you'd get the average, because if there are enough people, you'd get the average, and it would be the right decision, I think.
Yeah.
I can see what you mean, Val, because it is so easy to click, and if you really do believe in your opinions or whatever it is that you're saying, usually you would back it up with actual action, more than just
clicking
it, so maybe in that sense it's taken a bit lightly, like when you sign an online petition. I've always, like, I've done it a few times for causes I believe in, but I've always felt like this probably isn't really enough because it is so easy just to type my name and press send,
I'm not sure. How does Change.org actually work?
That's exactly how it works. But you also get signed up to lots of other petitions that you're not necessarily that.
What does it actually do, though? Like, once they make the goal, what happens to it?
I think they just send, like, the list.
It's kind of up to the person who created it, I think. I think they get a list of names on a spreadsheet or something, like, and then they can do whatever the hell they want with it.
That doesn't do anything, though, does it?
No, not necessarily.
It's just like...
No. And I think maybe part of why it wouldn't have so much of an impact is, like you said, it's just so easy to do it. But people are distracted, aren't they? That's the thing. Like, people's minds are on other things. And it is so easy to ignore what's going on in the world. People want to ignore it because a lot of what's going on in the world is horrible and nobody has any sense of control over it. I find it really hard, watching the news sometimes because of things going on in the world, and you do feel powerless. And I think, for a lot of people, it's easier just to be ignorant to it. And, we have so many distractions around that. Yeah, people are just not paying so much attention, and,
it's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario, really, because if you don't feel like you have any power, you don't get involved, and you don't have any power.
Yeah.
So it needs someone to break the loop.
But the only way it's going to stay like that is if you just continue waiting for the information to come to you. I think you've got to actually go out there and try and understand things, because so many people our age, they don't know anything about the elections, do they?
Yeah. I mean, the people who vote. It doesn't really matter what party, but I'm going to say Tory because I personally disagree with it. No, it's people who vote Tory because their parents did.
Yeah.
Any of that, or even voting because you did last time, or voting because you like the colour red. If you like voting Labour.
I haven't heard that one, but
I don't like that it's red and yellow though. I don't think they go together very well. The Labour.
Oh yeah,
it's red and yellow, isn't it? The text is always in yellow. Garish.
Yeah, I would definitely. Well, UKIP are off the cards because that combination is disgusting. That's the only reason.
That's the only reason we don't want UKIP.
Yeah, definitely.
But we talked about like leaders, what do you think about Hillary Clinton?
I think American politics is a joke, isn't it? It's just like a revolving door of the same family members or celebrities, or, you know, it's, I mean, if you want to complain about how like everything is about presentation and image here, that's a million times more so the case over there. And Hillary Clinton, I mean, I don't know a huge amount about her or her policies, yeah, but in broad terms, I think that it's like another version of Obama all over again. So a lot of people thought there's hope because we have a black person running for the presidency in the United States. This symbolizes change. And so now we have a female for the first time. This symbolizes some kind of change. Yeah. And it's just politics. It's not real, you know, like these people are no different from anyone else. They just come in a different wrapper, you know, because that, you know, will automatically get certain people to believe in it. But she's no different to any other politician. And the fact that she was married to a former president, you know, like, is just, you know, they're just this. It's just cut from the same cloth. And it's all, to me, it's all a big joke.
Yeah, I mean, they have the same problem with people voting for the person rather than the policies, because when you talk to people who are, you know, pro-Clinton, Hillary Clinton, they say she's a woman, so she should be president, and then they can't elaborate on that.
Yeah.
But considering...
it undermines the the pro-women's movement, you know, like it undermines it completely.
Yeah, that's one of like the main problems about the feminist movement, is that you have those people who are absolutely clueless and are just going to the extremes.
Yeah. Because
considering Hillary's like track record with corporations and foreign policy with the Iraq War and all the other wars she's supported, it makes absolutely no sense to support her, but people are supporting her just because she's a woman.
Yeah.
And nothing else.
Yeah. I don't know. I remember when Obama was campaigning, and a lot of my friends were so excited about that because they thought, yeah, you know, like this means so much. And I was skeptical the whole way. And, you know, once he got in power and, you know, they saw kind of, you know, what he actually did, like people started turning around and being like, yeah, actually, you know, I don't like Obama. I don't like what he's done. And it would be the same thing, I think, happening over and over again. And it's, I don't know, like, people are afraid of how things look, aren't they? So if you're a feminist, you're going to think, oh, I better vote for the woman, because if I don't vote for the woman, you know, I'm going to look like I'm anti-feminist. But it's just missing the point. It's just missing the point completely.
Yeah. The whole point is that the gender shouldn't matter.
Exactly.
It shouldn't be like a point of discussion or anything.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what they're doing. They're making that the primary.
Yeah. And it's just, it seems so obvious to me at least, but you know, like it will work I think it will work for a lot of people. It will, you know, it will convince people like, oh, this is a good, like you're saying, you know.
Yeah.
Well, they won't have a rational argument for why it's good. They just think, oh, it's a woman, so it's good.
I mean, that's what the Republicans are doing as well. They put forward this female candidate. Just the only reason is to draw votes away from Clinton. She's a terrible person, this Republican, but she's actually being successful in doing
What's her name?
Carly Fury, I think.
Carly Fury.
Sounds like
a wrestler.
It probably is.
Would not surprise me. You got Arnold Schwarzenegger, like governor of California or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on...
Oh, Fiorina.
Yeah, Fiorina. What's your opinion on the actual name feminism? Because that divides opinions in itself. Yeah. Everything about it divides opinions.
Well, that's an interesting question because I actually recently formed a new view on that. So I've identified myself as a feminist since I was about 12 or 13. And it's just because it made complete sense to me, you know. people shouldn't be, like a person's life path should not be dictated by something they were born as, that they had no choice over, you know. And I don't think that it's valid to say that, you know, because of your gender, like you should have this particular kind of route in life, you know, you should be able to choose, and it shouldn't be based on gender. The thing I actually think now is that I think that viewpoint should be the standard, not like some kind of radical idea that has a special name, feminism.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's normal, that's common sense, that's how things should be. And I just think as soon as you call yourself a feminist, people don't really know what the word means. And they hear femme in it and they think it's pro-women and anti-men by default. So there's a real misunderstanding of what the word actually means. And it makes complete sense to me why it's called that, because women are disadvantaged still and have been, you know, for all of history. And so it was necessary to say this is about women, because it was about empowering women. And it still should be, but unfortunately, you know, the word has been twisted around into something that nobody really understands. You know, no one really knows what it's supposed to mean. It means different things to every person, but the basic idea isn't a radical idea. You know, maybe 50 years ago it was, but it isn't now. It's just how things should be. It's obvious. We're all human beings, and you know, your genitals shouldn't, dictate what life you lead. You know, it's just madness. It's absolute madness.
The same thing happens with religion. You could say it's happening now. The idea that misunderstanding causes polarization between people.
Yeah.
Because you defend your patch because someone doesn't understand, and then they defend, and then you back off from each other.
Yeah.
Like, and these radical views form. Yeah. And I've not actually heard that point before. The idea that you should just stop naming it anything. It's a really good one, because it shouldn't be a movement.
No,
it's
be common sense.
Right in the middle.
It's common sense, and I think, like the only effect that I've seen from identifying myself as a feminist is that people become defensive, and I've never described myself that way in order to provoke that reaction in people. But when you see, you know, that it doesn't further your kind of cause in any way, it serves no real purpose, then it makes no sense in doing it. And unfortunately, you know, like, I think, you know, some people feel easily threatened, don't they? And they think like they're almost looking for a reason to feel threatened by something, and they'll find it in anything. So it doesn't even matter if you were to say, "Oh, I'm a feminist, but feminism means X, Y, Z." So it's a definition that nobody can disagree with. You know, it's not harming anybody. It would still be a problem because people are focused on seeing it as a problem. You know, the idea that has already been formed. You know, they've already made up their mind, so they're closed to hearing what's actually, you know, what the person actually means, and it's a shame. And so if you removed that completely from the equation, and you know, it was no longer seen as something radical and subversive and against the norm, then, you know, I think it might change people's attitudes a little bit about what it actually means. But
go on.
How do you then, if you kind of remove the name, how do you push the point? Do you have to just wait for it to kind of, because I mean, people our age, it's not like a,
for most people,
it's the same with racism and religion. Like, there's no kind of, everybody's fine with everything, really. So do you just wait for the older generation to die off,
grow out of it,
or do you have to like find a way of pushing the point without connecting the word feminism to it?
I don't know. Like, I can't really answer that. What do you think?
I have no idea.
No.
I don't.
What about rebranding? Because this is something that, you know...
But if you rebrand, it's always going to be connected to the previous word. I don't think... At least with the media, when the media reports it, you're not going to be able to change They're going to keep calling it feminism. I don't think... Because they know what people already... It's a word that kind of encompasses the whole... Like, what the word means,
Yeah.
all the kind of aggression from people towards it, and that's what they want. They want people to get angry over that.
So the you know, you make a great point there in the fact that you're showing how it's not about the word. It could be called anything, but it's about the ideas people have of it and the associations people have made with that word, and the fact that the media has some sort of agenda, and so it's using it to, you know, further that agenda, knowing full well the effect it has. And I don't know, really. Can it be reclaimed?
I guess the only way is you have to wait until they all die off.
My personal opinion, well, maybe not death, but my personal opinion is that it should, if it's obviously difficult to say it should be slow and gradual because that denies rights and all these things to the current people who are currently suffering. But it's if you get aggressive in any way with an issue that's this fragile, the whole thing can topple down.
Yeah.
So it just has to be shown that this is eminently better than the current situation. Yeah. It's like introduction of any new invention or technology. If it's eminently better, it will happen inevitably.
Yeah,
but it's an idea. It's not something. It's not something you can hold. And
I think a large part of the reason people don't like the word is because it seems to focus only on women, right? And if it was a word that was about everyone, so something like equal rights or equal opportunism or something instead, then nobody who can argue with that, unless you're trying to say that you don't want, you know, your fellow human beings to be kind of empowered to have the same opportunities as you.
Yeah.
You know, because I think something that a lot of people don't like is the idea that feminism takes something away from men in order to give it to women, but that's not really what's going on. You know, it's not like there's a limited amount of power.
Only so much opportunity in this world.
Yeah, you know, it's not. It doesn't work that way, especially these days where, you know, you don't have a family in general. Like, the structure of families is not woman stays at home and man goes out and works. Like, men and women go out and work. You know, like, we just don't live in that world anymore where people who have those archaic views can really still have a leg to stand on, because, you know, women have been proving for decades that, you know, they're just as capable as men, if not more capable, despite the fact that they're systematically disadvantaged. You know, like, universities are, like, you have more women in university, you know, like, educationally, like, women seem to be performing better, or girls, you know, they're not in schools and things like that, you know, exam results and everything, like, women are generally actually achieving better results. Women have demonstrated for long enough that, you know, like, they are just as important in the public sphere, not just the domestic sphere. I don't know. Who can argue with it, really? You just got to be like...
Do you think there is a degree of differentiation that's required? Because you could say that it all comes down to biology, really, essentially. Kind of, we are different biologically. So do you think there has to be some way in which men and women have to act or behave differently? Obviously, this is quite controversial, but men and women are better at different things. Is that what you think? In some ways, like, there's people talk about the male and female brain. Men are more suited to certain tasks than women. That's proven to an extent that that's kind of true. Obviously, that shouldn't limit what you are able to do. You're gonna have an opinion on this, aren't you?
Well, okay. Everybody knows that when you love something, you're good at it, right? Like, the more you enjoy what you're doing, the better you perform in that task, yeah? So you might have a man who has, like, a brain that's more kind of suited for this type of task, but maybe he doesn't enjoy that task. And maybe there's a woman that technically her brain isn't, you know, like, up to the same level for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm using what you said, by the way. I'm not saying that this is the truth. I'm just going with your argument.
Yeah.
But she actually wants to do that job. So who's better for the job? You know, like, the person who wants to do it, because they actually would be making the effort to, like, to learn, and, you know, they're going to be present, they're going to be enthusiastic, you know. So I don't think that, like, it's even if, for the sake of argument, like, men's brains for hormonal reasons or whatever, are better suited to certain tasks. Like, we are still individuals and we are still people, and you know, like, it doesn't automatically mean that a man should be doing it, you know, because maybe he would rather be doing something else, like, or, you know, it shouldn't be that a man gets preferential treatment when there are women there that want to do it arguably more so than they do, you know.
But would he be going for that job in the first place?
I don't know. This is mega hypothetical, but I just mean, like, I don't think you can say, like, this should be assigned to a man because he's a man, or that should be assigned to a woman, or this should be prohibited because, you know, from this person because of their gender. Like, I just feel that we place so much emphasis on it, and maybe a large part of that is just the conditioning and language as well. I mean, give me a good argument for why it's necessary to distinguish between he and she in language. Why is that necessary? Why do we have languages like, for example, Spanish, Arabic, where there are feminine and masculine versions of words? What purpose does that actually serve? You know, like.
Well, there's a lot of research into the way in which language affects you. This is slightly tangential, but different cultures who don't have as distinguished a differentiation between past, present, and future are much better at planning for the future and saving, and they get into debt less.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating.
They get there's less addiction. These are kind of a lot of the Eastern cultures. There's a lot less of these things. Obviously, maybe when it's westernised, it's not so much of an effect. Yeah. It's really interesting how the way in which you speak can subconsciously affect your opinion. So, yeah, if there was no differentiation between male and female, there would probably be next to no thought about it.
Yeah, exactly. But you start from day one with toys that are gender specific. Yeah. You know, little girls with ironing boards and boys with guns. You know, and of course, people are going to grow up with, you know, not just, you know, different expectations and opinions, but also the brain is probably going to develop differently, because from a young age, you're calling on different parts of the brain to develop rather than others. So they say that one of the reasons that you don't get many women in engineering is because women are not usually encouraged, like girls, children, not usually encouraged to play with Lego and, you know, these kind of toys that encourage...
And develop that part of the brain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it probably actually goes down to... you know, birth and, you know, different colours and stuff for, like, you know, blue and pink, and you're just immediately telling, like, people that they belong to one side or another, and people don't, you know, they just don't. And I mean, that's evidenced by the fact that you have, like, you know, more, because we live in a more tolerant culture and climate these days, you know, you find that people might... technically, according to, you know, like a medical definition or whatever, be male, but they might not feel that they want to be male, or they might not want to dress in a traditionally male way, so they don't. So it's not so clear cut, but we make it clear cut, and it just causes a lot of problems, you know, because I just don't think people work that way.
Yeah, you could imagine a thought experiment style society where people with blue eyes and people with brown eyes are differentiated as radically.
Yeah. And
you are told that as a person with blue eyes that you go and play with, I don't know, dolls. Let's say these are the female. They play with dolls and play with whatever.
Yeah.
Would my brain develop differently? For those listening, I have blue eyes. to yours.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one you could imagine.
So I like to work out, and I like to do weights and stuff. I enjoy it, and you do, you know, you know, there's like a mentality like that I've seen myself have, like, if I've trained with guys, you know, and they're doing better than me, like, I almost feel like, you know, I have had moments where I think, well, I'm female, so it doesn't matter that, you know, they're lifting heavier than me. And it's not because I'm actually, I don't know, like, I know physically I could push myself harder. Men are stronger, yeah, that's biological. Nobody's arguing with that, right?
Yep.
That's testosterone, and that's biology, and that's inescapable. But it's the mentality that, like, you look at kind of the expectations people have of themselves based on gender, and, you know, you could try a lot harder and you could do a lot better, but you think it's fine because... oh, I'm female, so it doesn't matter so much. Whereas, like, a man, would be more like, no, I'm male, so I have to be able to do this. I'm supposed to be stronger, you know?
Yeah.
And like there'll be some competition that will come out. And, you know, if you're raised with that idea kind of implanted from a young age that because you're male, you're female, different expectations are placed on you, you're mentally gonna kind of respond to a challenge in a different way, right? Like that's what I'm, in a very convoluted way, trying to actually like convey with this point about the weights and stuff. Like, you know, you could do better, but you allow yourself not to because you think, well, I'm female or I'm male or whatever, so I don't need to worry about that. And you end up with people who are not very well-rounded as a result, because, you know, there are, you know, like another example is like emotional intelligence, right? And, you know, people are often talking about men and, you know, men compared to women don't have as high emotional intelligence. But as soon as you start saying that to people, it tells people they don't need, like, you're saying to a man, you don't have it. So the man's like, oh, I don't have it. But actually, it's a necessary thing as a human being, you know, to prosper. It's important to develop it. And if you immediately take the responsibility away from the person, or that feeling that they actually have control over it and they could do something to improve it, then, you know, you're handicapping that person, aren't you, in some way, mentally, from actually achieving their potential and developing themselves, like, fully. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, that means you, as a kid, then your brain is, it's so simple then to change the way a person will develop then, just by surrounding them with different things. And
you have complete plasticity.
Yeah.
I just think that the divisions, just we impose them on children, and they grow up being what we make them into, you know, like we make men and women, but you don't, that's not nature doing that, that's us saying, okay, well, if a woman is like this, she serves a valuable role in society. If men are like this, they serve a valuable role. And it's just an easy way of classifying people. And, you know, but it just doesn't, I just don't think in our, you know, in the current day and age, like, that it actually betters anyone or serves a valid purpose. And the only people that have a problem with the idea of women and men being on an equal footing are people who feel threatened by the idea of having women compete with them, you know. And that just says a lot about those people as individuals, doesn't it? You know?
Why do you think there are some females who completely shun feminism and think, I don't like this idea, I think men and women should be different? Why is that the case? Is that they are totally conditioned? Because men, you could see the way in which you might benefit from that. You get better pay, you get dominance, all that sort of thing. But as a female who's actively getting discriminated against, I don't understand that mindset myself.
I have a few thoughts, but Val looks like he wanted to say something.
I was watching a Fox News video this morning. One of they do this female show, like it's four of them, all of the hosts. They sit there and they talk about things in the news, and one of them was, I don't know if you saw it, you know that yellow poster with the woman in a bikini, and it was for the protein shake.
Are you ready? Are you beach ready?
Yeah. They were talking about that, and she said, the quote was, anyone with a functioning brain asks the question, are you beach body ready?
Yeah.
And she was talking how that the people who disagree with that advert are the people who are worried about not having that Beachbody advert, and that you should teach if you're worried about your children being affected by that, you should teach your children to be completely oblivious to science, which I can't understand Fox News' logic, really.
Yeah, that's because there isn't any.
Yeah.
You shouldn't really listen to them on any front.
Yeah.
No.
All right, go on. What were you about to say?
Well, okay, I think that just as there are a lot of men out there that don't understand what feminism means, there are also a lot of women who don't, you know? And so, you know, they might think that feminism is like an attack on men. They might have that idea, they might have been taught that somehow, or they might have deduced it from the word, whatever. And, you know, that particular woman might have grown up in a family with a lovely father and brothers who were great, and, you know, like, have been quite sheltered from some of the harsher things that happen on a daily basis in this world, you know, like, that are, like, from men directed at women, you know, like, and might not have seen any of that. And so they grew up thinking there's no need for it, you know, like, I have this great father, I have these great brothers, you know, and, you know, like, feminists or just women who hate men, you know, believe in that. And I think it's just lack of exposure to a kind of full picture of what's really going on in the world, you know. So I think maybe some of those women that are anti-feminist actually have good intentions, you know, like, and they think highly of men because they are lucky to have had positive experiences from a young age with a lot of, you know, the formative male figures, you know. And so, yeah, they reject it because they see no need for it according to their own experiences. I think there are also some women who, now I don't like to say this, but I think it is not a common thing, but I think it does happen. There are some women that, for them, male approval is really, really important, and they think that an easy way of getting it is to reject feminism and say, I don't like that, because that's going to appeal to the certain type of man that they're hoping to attract. They might be the type that wants a very domineering male partner or whatever. They might want that, and that they might realise that, you know, when they kind of reject that and present themselves in a more submissive role, they're going to attract that domineering person that they're actually looking for. Some women, you know, actually want that, which is fair enough, because we all want different things. But I just think it comes from, like, a misunderstanding of the full picture, really. That's the only explanation that I can think of. Or when you have, like, your own agenda and feminism doesn't serve that agenda, you know, like, yeah.
The women who had the good experiences and they've risen up through the ranks, like, that's not a valid reason, though. It doesn't take much time on the internet to actually do some research and look at statistics to see that there is inequality. You know, another thing... It's really simple.
Yeah, I agree with you. But another thing I've seen, actually, in some cases is you have that yeah but thing where, like, any statistic they see that describes, you know, like, domestic violence or whatever, they'll come up with a yeah but argument for how it happens to men as well.
Yeah.
And they ignore the scale. Like, they don't compare the figures and the prevalence and actually look at it, you know, in context, but they just counter argue and say, well, you know, look at this happens the other way around as well. Men are victims as well. And, you know, you see it a lot on the internet. You know, if you ever kind of express any view about like rape, you know, you will get someone who comes along and says, well, men get raped as well, you know. And it's true, but it's, you know, you can't come along and try and undermine, like, a valid point by making kind of the same point, you know, like, because it's wrong whoever's doing it. The fact is, though, you know, most perpetrators of rape, I mean, all actually in this country, according to the legal definition, women cannot rape. Only men can rape, according to the legal definition. But yeah, in this country, you only have male rapists. So those men that have been raped, actually, it's by a man, you know? So that it's just undermining an argument to be facetious and controversial, but you're not actually, you know, looking at the reality of the situation, the fact that most victims of rape are actually women, and all rapes are perpetrated by men.
In order to use the word but, you have to follow it with a statement that refutes the previous argument.
Yeah.
It should be yeah and.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, okay, World War II happened, lots of people died. Yeah, but there was also the Iraq War.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't really discredit the previous point.
It's a pointless
thing. But you've seen it, haven't you? You've seen that kind of thing. You must have done online. Yeah.
Everyone has seen it.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, do you guys have any views on why you do find women who are, you know, anti-feminist?
Well, you mentioned briefly ambition. It's kind of hard. It's like difficult to tread the line on this, but sometimes you get possibly my least favourite anti-feminist type person is the one who's like, oh yeah, I love the idea of not having any responsibility, not having to get a job. I think lack of ambition in anyone is one of the like a really bad trait in terms of improvement for themselves and in terms of improvement for everyone. If everyone had the correct level of ambition, regardless of gender, a lot
people
more
would continue to move forward.
A lot more incredible things would happen.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
But why the women? I think the women who don't agree with feminism are the women. When you actually talk to them, they say it's because of what it's connected to. Again, going back to what we were talking about, the meaning of the word.
Yeah.
They actually, like everybody else, most of them, I'm sure there's a few of them, but most of them agree with the fact that it should be equal rights. Like it's a non-issue that's what it should happen. Yeah. It's just the feminism whole thing is what they disagree with, the kind of aggression and what it's connected to.
Well, yeah, they have images of angry, women who hate men, and like those are strong images. So I guess they take precedent in a person's mind when they haven't taken the time to actually read around the subject and learn about it. And that might happen if a person had quite a sheltered life and didn't have a pressing reason to do that, if that makes sense. If you're brought up in a family with damaging male kind of family members and and it's really like happening on a daily basis, you're probably going to be more interested in it. You're probably going to have more of an impetus to go and learn about it and identify with it. But when it's the opposite case, you got more important stuff. You got shoes to think about, and I don't know, I don't know, like, yeah.
Rather than starting a conversation asking somebody, are they a feminist, it's probably better just saying, do you believe in equal rights? Yeah. And then it's almost 100% they're going to say yes.
But it's like, that's like saying, do you have a pulse, right? Or it should be. Exactly. It should be, Yeah. Like, it's not always, obviously, but, yeah. No, I agree with you. I've had people ask me, people who've seen Facebook posts but don't know me so well in person, and like if I've started to hang out with them a bit more, and like that question will come up, like, are you a feminist? And I always find it so strange because it's like, I just don't see the need for the word. I guess I've already said that. Like, I just don't see the need for the word, and like it's, to me, it's like it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's equal rights, and
Despite that, do you consider yourself to be kind of on a mission in a way? Do you think that everyone should just be of the opinion of like for equal rights, don't treat it as a movement, but not actively be evangelist about it? Or do you think that you're quite evangelist about this sort of thing?
Okay, I think like
and should you be?
I think that you should express yourself. I think honesty is the best trait that a person can have, really. Honesty, because then you know who you're dealing with, and honesty goes along with it. It kind of has sub-traits such as integrity, and courage, like to be honest requires lots of other positive traits. But I think, like if that's how you feel and that's what you think, like you should express yourself, definitely. Evangelism about it, like I don't know, because I don't think you should force it in people's faces when they're not receptive to it, like some people are not interested, and I don't think you should kind of step on anyone's toes. No, I think there's a smart way of going about it. I think the best thing really is like living your life according to what you believe in, right? Being an example of your beliefs. So rather than like paying lip service and preaching and being evangelical about it, actually living it, practicing it. If you believe in equal rights, like showing that by, not allowing yourself to be held back by gender or by this or by anything, but actually going out there and being like, a confident person and just kind of just being an example, because then people will come to you and they'll say like, oh, okay, you do things a bit differently, like what's that about? And then they actually want to hear you out, and that's probably the best time to actually express what you think, because the person's already interested and they're already seeing that it's produced a positive result, right? But if you're just preaching about it, people are like, people like to see evidence before they,
Yeah.
So
does that connected to what you were saying about trying to live a life of meaning?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Living a life of meaning. Well, this is the thing. Like, a couple of years ago, went to a leadership development course run by this company called Lead Now, and they actually introduced me to this idea that I hadn't really come across before, and it's the idea of like, you focus on figuring out your personal values and you find a way of living in accordance with these values. And it kind of blew my mind a bit, to be honest, this idea, because I just never heard it before. And, we're all kind of like living our lives because of certain things, and we're motivated by different things, and, like, we have different levels of ambition, and, like you said, and, everyone's doing things in their own way. But, like, I think, I don't know, like, the idea that you could look inside yourself and say, okay, what affects me on a deep level? Like, what do I really care about? What matters to me? Like, what would give my life a sense of meaning and purpose, and allowing that to direct you, instead of, oh, well, I'm this age, so I should have achieved this by this point, or that will, pay me a lot of money, or my parents will be proud of me if I have that job, or, all the kinds of things that might motivate the average person, like, to do what they do. I think, yeah, for me, like, when I was introduced to that idea, it really kind of gave me, like, a lot to think about, and a lot to reflect on. And it was just, that's what I meant when I said living a life of meaning, like, knowing yourself and finding ways to make decisions based on what actually really matters to you personally, and not what matters to everyone else.
Without asking too much of a personal question, have you done that yourself? Have you found kind of the values? Have you set yourself goals? Have you got a kind of mission, like, I'm saying mission again? Have you got this particular ambition that you want to go for?
Okay. I spent time, and I do it I'm still doing it now, thinking about what really matters to me. And I think, yeah, it has had a big effect on my life, I think one of the good things that helped that process was I spent time living in another country for like about 6 months, and I went there alone, and I had so much time there, to kind of to really observe myself, because I think we're so busy all the time, like, we're so busy, and so many expectations are placed on us, and we have so many pressures and so many stresses that we don't actually have the luxury of time. We don't have it, and we don't realize that how valuable it can be. I think actually sometimes we're afraid of it because we're not used to it, and thoughts come up when you have free time, right, that maybe you don't want to pay any attention to, because maybe you start questioning what you're doing, or insecurities come up, or just thoughts you'd like to silence. You don't really want to address them. When you're kind of in a position where you can, those thoughts come up, and you can observe them, and you can see where they come from, and you can really, really figure out, like, what they really mean and what they're really saying to you. Like, it's a really, really valuable thing. And so I think, yeah, like, that was a really important thing, the fact that I had that time and that space and the energy to be able to do that. And, I came back from that time, like, with a much kind of better idea of who I am as a person, what matters to me. And I don't have this strong sense of ambition in the traditional sense, which might be, becoming like a CEO or something like that, and having lots of money and like a Mercedes, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But that's because that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
I have my ambitions, but they're very personal, and, they are things that matter to me, and they're probably things that might not matter to a huge number of people. But I can say that with a lot of certainty now because I took the time to really think about it. And, you know, I think a lot of people would benefit from doing something similar.
Yeah.
Definitely, you know. But I do think we have a culture where it's kind of done on purpose.
That's what I was about to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, people are, like, afraid to be alone by themselves.
Yeah.
So, say, meditation or things like that.
Yeah.
People don't want to do that.
No.
They're scared of it.
Yeah.
It's like with notifications on your phone, it's such a distraction. You can't... You've always got to be picking it up, checking. Like, when you're walking down the street or something, most of the time, you're going to, like, pull out your phone and check something.
Well, you would if you had a phone that had a screen you could read in sunlight, but I don't have that.
You're blessed.
But you see, like, people don't get the chance or don't put the effort into making sure they have the chance to actually sit down and meditate. Or
people don't realise how useful it is because it's not part of our culture. Yeah. People are not introduced to this idea and you know, and encouraged to do it. I mean, it's gaining some attention, I think, partly because of the internet and, like, yoga is popular and, you know, meditation and yoga kind of go hand in hand. But this is something quite recent. I think in general, it's not part of Western culture, the introspection. I just think that, you know, the cultural values in the West are more about, you know, status and kind of what other people think of you and, you know, the acquisition of wealth, and these things seem to be like more pressing kind of issues for a lot of people than sort of knowing yourself and so I don't think it's anyone's real kind of fault that they don't do it. You know, they're afraid of it.
Yeah.
And they're not encouraged to do it. You know?
There's a general stigmatization, and it's symptomatic of the same thing, I'm sure, of being introverted. It's like, are you introverted and shy and generally shit, or extroverted and kind of a party animal and have fun and have friends?
Yeah.
So these kind of being introverted is just, like, if you're introverted, you look into yourself, you do what you were saying, that are all these beneficial things, but it's not something that's cool.
No, but when an introvert opens their mouth, nine times out of 10 they have something worth listening to.
Yeah, we've come a full circle. You said that about politics as well.
Yeah,
like all these extroverted people in politics, and there are no introverted people because they, by definition, they cannot get into the current
people want to support them. Yeah.
There's one thing kind of related that I read that was saying that if you share your goals with people, I'm not sure it was deliberate, but you didn't say that much specific, which is great, about what your ambitions are. It's like you are less likely to succeed. You're statistically less likely to actually achieve them if you share them.
Do you remember why that was?
It was one of the reasons, it was kind of hypothesised, was that you get a sense of gratification from people going, oh, that's good. Right. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to be an astronaut. Wow! You're kind of halfway there.
Oh, that's really funny, yeah.
So if you are kind of totally confident in what you want to do, you have it in your head. It's almost like sharing, another reason is sharing copyrighted ideas and that sort of thing. Oh, I want to do this and this and this and this, someone else steals it.
Yeah.
But on another level, if you share it and then people think you've already done it, then you don't have the same drive to do it.
Yeah. Yes.
Got to do it for the right reasons. I mean, but
course,
you've got to do it for yourself. So.
How we doing for time?
Yeah, I think we've come to the end.
Do you want to do the last two?
Yeah, last two questions then.
Have we warned you about these?
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sure we'll have plenty
we'll
to
get
say.
some, yeah.
All right.
We ask all our guests these questions.
Okay.
First one is looking to the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
What are you most excited for?
Oh, wow. Okay. What in the world happening?
Personally,
globally.
This we always have to clarify this.
Yeah.
I plan to be living in South America within the next 10 years. I plan to be living over there. So I'm looking forward to beautiful weather and lots of caipirinhas and just, you know, a slower pace of life. I think I would prefer that a lot. And in terms of the world, you know, like, I can't say that I'm excited about what I see happening, you know, like, I feel a little bit like things are going like
We've got
downhill. No. Okay, next question.
What are you most worried then?
Most worried about, you know what it is? I think it's the internet, because I just feel like everyone's life revolves around technology and social media, and people don't connect human to human anymore. You know, people don't even phone each other. And I just think that we're kind of developing these lifestyles where other people are becoming less and less necessary, you know, like, and I just think the sense of community and belonging and companionship and, you know, these things are becoming kind of less normal, you know, and people are more distant, and I don't think that's good for anyone.
Yeah, I think people might think that it's going the other way. They might say that we're more connected than ever. We're sharing more things than possible. It'd be interesting to make a Matrix-style film where it's about one guy and he interacts with the internet exactly the same way, except it's all totally automated. Yeah. He might think he's got lots of friends and he's got a wonderful sense of community, except no one else actually exists.
That's a really cool idea. But
I shouldn't have shared my ideas with you!
Oh yeah, well, at least you got the sense of reward. It's almost like you've made the film. Right?
Yeah. Scribble it down straight away. Not tell you anymore. Right?
Edit it out of the podcast so no one...
Will do.
Yeah.
Have some jingle music and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming onto the podcast.
That's okay, I really enjoyed it.
And do you have anywhere where people can find you? Do you have Twitter or something?
I do, but I don't know how to use it. No. Like, honestly, I tried to write a message to someone and I was tweeting and I got really confused.
All right.
You could add me on Facebook.
Well, there we go then. Yeah.
Thank
you for listening, and we'll see you next time.